All right, Eddie Hearns. Eddie Hearns has another heavyweight pop dirty on one of his cards. But this time, surprisingly, he lets people know about it. Oleksandr Usyk just lost his opponent in Tyrone Spong. Let's talk about that and what that means for the heavyweight division and Eddie Hearn in this video. All right, man. Welcome back to the channel. Subscribers, hey, if you're not subscribed, please subscribe. And to my supporters, thank you guys so much for your support. Coming to the videos. Let me know what you think about the videos. Watching them all the way to the end. Coming by the live streams. Thank you to everybody that comes by the live streams Monday through Friday and OG Boxing Talk on Sunday with myself, Blood Boxing, KQKC Boxing, and Curtis Anderson. And also what we do over there on the Patreon. We got a video that I'm doing right now called the NBA in China, so you guys can understand exactly what these people are up in an uproar about, and you know what it usually winds up being about. We're gonna talk about that on the Patreon. Now let's get into this, man. Another PED test. Vada ain't playing with Eddie this time. Vada say the very next time you have somebody pop dirty on your car, we catching them, Eddie. Now I don't know. I don't think Spong is actually represented by I don't know if he is represented by Eddie Hearn or not, or whether or not he's just on the card. But he's fighting Oleksandr Usyk, who was supposed to fight Oleksandr Usyk in Chicago, my hometown, this upcoming weekend. But Tyrone Spong tested positive for a performance-enhancing drug, got caught by VADA. Now, the funny thing is man, God, I am stuttering up a storm today, man. It's not a good day. Sorry. Up late last night watching The Wire, catching up on 6 seasons of The Wire. Man, great show. Anyway, Eddie Hearn winds up telling everybody, goes to Twitter, says, hey, I regret to inform you guys that Tyrone Spong has tested positive for performance-enhancing drug. And we're out here looking for new competition. And that's for him to fight the former unified cruiserweight Oleksandr Usyk, who I do believe is in position to be the mandatory for the WBO heavyweight title, despite having never fought at heavyweight. Not an unusual circumstance for the WBO. I know that's happened before, but it's just a rule that I don't particularly like, because just because you're good in the weight class below doesn't mean to me that you should automatically leapfrog established fighters in the heavyweight division that have already won, already competed, and already demonstrated, or should have demonstrated, may have demonstrated that they are worthy. So, but Oleksandr Usyk is going to fight somebody. Tyrone Spong was he's kind of small, relatively inexperienced heavyweight I think he's out of South America. So I didn't really consider that being too much of a test for Oleksandr Usyk. Not that I've seen Spong fight a lot, just because that's how these matchups are set. When you have a guy that's moving up and they're trying to make him look good, they're going to give him somebody that's pretty much going to be perfect to him. Somebody that's not very mobile, somebody that really, this guy's dimensions are actually smaller. I think he's a little shorter. His height is shorter. His arms were a little shorter than Oleksandr Usyk. So I didn't expect it to be much of a fight. So it's really not much of a loss to me, even though I am interested to see Oleksandr Usyk at heavyweight. The interesting thing though for this is though that the news that Eddie Hearn will let people know that a fighter actually tested positive for performance-enhancing drugs. And how ironic it is, like, just think the Dillian White situation. I made a video about it before. It's now been 78 days since Dillian White tested positive for D-ball before the fight with geez, man, his name is with Oscar Rivas in the UK. where he was fighting to become the WBC mandatory. It's now been 78 days since that fight. The test, him testing positive was probably a few days before that. Somebody can put in the comment section exactly when that is. But right now, by my count of the fight, the date of the fight was 78 days. 78 days since Dillian Whyte was allowed to fight under the influence of performance-enhancing drugs. Now, do you think that at all would have been a possibility for Oleksandr Usyk if he fought in the UK? Now, I know that this is just a hypothetical, but could you imagine if Tyrone Spong tested positive, just say he tested positive for D-ball, and he's going into a fight with Oleksandr Usyk. Oleksandr Usyk is not made aware of the fact that Tyrone Spong tested positive for performance-enhancing drugs, right? No idea. Eddie, you think Eddie Hearn knows, right? Say Eddie Hearn knows about it. Eddie Hearn, then you think Eddie Hearn would go with Tyrone Spong to the British Boxing Board of Control and have a special meeting with the British Boxing Board of Control and allow Tyrone Spong to fight because he gave a good excuse as to why it was in his system? Do you think there's any likelihood of that at all? Really and truly? No, there's not. Not a chance. What if it was in the United States and just say Bob Arum was the promoter of Tyrone Spong and Bob Arum found out about it, went to the Illinois State Athletic Commission. I'm not sure what the boxing commission's name is in Illinois. They have a special hearing and Tyrone Spong gives them an excuse and says, hey, it was in the South American bananas that I ate, to get my potassium up. I didn't know that they were tainted with D-ball. Do you think that it was the fertilizer and the spray on the bananas that I ate to get my potassium up? What do you think what do you think that Eddie Hearn would say if he found out that took place in the state of Illinois and Tyrone Spong was allowed to fight Oleksandr Usyk and he won? But then add to it also that Tyrone Spong had a meeting that in the glove meeting that Oleksandr Usyk approved the gloves of Tyrone Spong, 2 pairs of gloves for the fight. Tyrone Spong could pick between the 2. They were both signed off on. And Tyrone Spong, after having tested positive for performance-enhancing drugs, shows up with a third set of gloves that were not reviewed. They are taped onto his hands. Eddie Hearn and Oleksandr Usyk noticed that the gloves have changed. And the Illinois State Athletic Commission says, it's too late. You can't change the gloves. The fight's about to start. Sorry. You think Eddie Hearn might pitch a bitch? Think he might pitch a bitch about that? I think he would. I think he would. But, but it is nice to see that at the very least, Eddie Hearn is interested in fighter safety when it's his fighter or when it's his marquee fighter, if he has a contract with Tyrone Spong. At least that. Now, compare what happened with Tyrone Spong and Oleksandr Usyk in the state of Illinois from what happened to Dillian Whyte and Oscar Rivas in the UK. And it baffles my mind how Bob Arum can ever open his mouth talking about performance-enhancing drugs tests in the United States. However, I also cannot help but notice the strange consistency at which people on Matchroom cards are testing positive for performance-enhancing drugs. Or how many fighters that are fighting for Matchroom Boxing are fighting on their cards at some point in their career have tested positive for performance-enhancing drugs. By my count, that's Tyrone Spong, that I can think of off the top of my head. Tyrone Spong, Dillian Whyte, Jarrell Big Baby Miller, Huey Fury, Billy Joe Saunders, and that's just 5 big name ones. Those are not the smaller guys that might have tested positive that it never hits the news. Anyway, but at least Eddie got this one right. Thank you, Eddie. Thank you, Eddie. Now, the next time that happens in the UK and it happens to somebody that's fighting your fighter, it would be real nice, Eddie, if you could do the same thing for them. Let me know what you think in the comment section. And with that, I'm out. Peace.